shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Coomer, and as chair, I now call to order the meeting of the directors of the Atlantic Arts Community Development Corporation for Thursday, September 26, 2024. I'd like to note for the record that this meeting is being webcast. The directors have received the relevant written materials in advance of today's meeting. Are free to ask questions at any time. Consistent with the policy of our parent corporation, ESD, we welcome public comment on the items on today's agenda. After each item is presented, any comments received from the directors will allow any members of the public attending today to provide comments. All comments should be limited to 2 minutes and should only address the item that is under consideration. Also note for the record that the public was given the opportunity to comment on today's agenda items by submitting their written comments by yesterday. And for the record, there were no comments received from the public. The final item on our agenda today is public comments. At that time, we'll have an opportunity for any members of the public attending to provide comments on non-agenda related matters or on matters that we discussed during the prior part of the meeting. Please keep in mind that it's our intention to try to conclude today's meeting by 5 p.m., which is our allotted time. Now I'd like to ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any item on the agenda. If so, please make an appropriate disclosure on the record at this time. We'll then be sure you may recuse yourself from any discussion or vote for such item. Hearing none, our first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the director meeting of August 8, 2024. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or additions, or deletions, corrections with respect to the minutes? I looked them over. I did not.
I have a few.
Okay.
One of them is that my name is misspelled in a number of areas. There's no P in my name. Half my family spells it with a C. I'm part of the half that doesn't.
But, and the other half doesn't have a vote at this stage.
Then there were a couple of places that I think need some clarification.
Okay.
On page 5, that's good for spelling it. On page 5, it refers to the quality of life and the capacity of the site. The term I was using was carrying capacity. I repeat it later on. It's a term of art. It's sustainable planning.
Where is that on the page?
It says the borough is the quality of life and the capacity, the carrying capacity of the site.
We want the word carrying added in before capacity.
Oh, well, and the carrying capacity.
Later on,
Second line near the end. Carrying
to add carrying there. I also thought, I say it later on, that it would be good if we could put in, if I could get it to you, a clear definition of what that means so that whoever reads it understands the document.
Insert that.
Put that as an agenda.
Or maybe if you'd like to give that right now, it would be in the minutes of this.
I think something you need to look up just to get the accepted academic. Yeah. So what we can do is maybe we'll sort of, if it's possible, to add a footnote to that sentence of the minutes, just to when Ron supplies the definition. And you should give a source for that too.
Then on page 9, it says planners, from a planner's perspective, on the third line under directorship and continued. It's really from a planning perspective. It's just a type.
From a planning perspective.
Yeah. And then on page 10, Director Schiffman added that there is a city planning office in Brooklyn. The word city planning office, city planning was missing, and dash a different office of city planning.
Where is
it's towards the end of the first paragraph. I can give you these. They're minor. I don't think they're anything political. Then on page 11, when I responded to Arden's comment, I said I read all the AKRF. They were environmental impact programs or environmental assessment documents. So I would put in environmental assessment documents there so that
after the acronym AKRF, we're going to add environmental assessment.
Okay. And
I think
that covers all of my comments.
Yeah, that's otherwise an inside baseball comment. Okay.
May I suggest for the next round of drafts to do line numbers on the pages so that when we have this type of commentary, we go right to page and line number rather than
If it's not,
the software should do that for you.
if you're doing this in Word, I think they do have a line.
Just a suggestion.
If you can do it without much. Any other comments or corrections on the minutes? Yep.
Two small ones. First, on page 8. Hold on a second.
The paragraph that starts Director Baconi.
No, actually, I think that I might have. Maybe on a. Hang on a second. I think when I looked at this, I was looking at the page numbers in the PDF, not the page numbers in this document. It's on the previous page, page 7. In the third to last line, it says environmental review period. But actually, we don't need the word period. It just needs environmental review. It's not a time frame.
I see. So striking the word period.
Yeah.
Before the comma.
Yes. And then on probably what's page 13, I just wanted to clarify that I got messed up with the PDF page.
What's for AI?
On page 10, on the second to last paragraph, it says, I added that the public plaza outside Barclays Center has to be permanent and confirmed that ESD is the fee owner of it. That was actually a question. I was asking who owns it and is it being leased by anybody right now? And if so, what are the terms?
So,
naming rights.
Well, I didn't get into the naming rights. I mean, we could talk about that too, but I mostly just, since the effect of Exhibit K was to take out the urban room and leave this plaza there, I want to just understand who it is that owns that plaza and if somebody's leasing it right now. So that's what this was.
instead of confirmed, you need an inquired whether.
Yes, and asked if ESD is the fee owner of it.
And asked if. Instead of confirmed that.
I don't know that. I can't confirm it because I don't know
And
that.
just, fee owner is a legal term that's not more than that. It means the absolute owner, the sole owner of the title owner of the. We can leave it as fee owner. Okay, any other comments or corrections? So, Debbie, do you have all those?
Yes.
Okay, so with those, assuming those corrections made, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to accept the minutes with the necessary corrections.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Yeah. One extension. And otherwise the motion carries. Okay. I think we can now move to the second item on our agenda, which is give an update. Anna, that's your Senior Vice President, Community Relations at ESD. And since it relates to the minutes, I noted as we were going over the minutes, that we had asked ESD to give some presentations on specific topics, and I'm pleased to say that we're going to receive those at this meeting. So, in particular, with respect to the police Exhibit K to the Site 5 lease, So I'd like to ask Anna to proceed with the update. This is being presented for information only, and no, we don't anticipate requiring any votes on any items, but it doesn't preclude directors from making motions during this or a later portion of our meeting. So why don't we proceed?
All right. Thank you, Chair. Good to see everyone here. So this is the project site map that by now I all are familiar with. Wanted to give you an update first off on the rail yard portion of the site. We first off, we understand that the MTA has been paid for the outstanding air rights obligation for the platform portion of the project. So wanted to update you on that. I know you've been asking about it. And we also wanted to just give you a status update. We have, as we had confirmed previously, gotten the request from USIF and Fortress for a new developer for this portion of the project. We're asking them for more detailed information, which they're working on. We do anticipate them pushing off the auction again, but that is proceeding.
So the Wall Street Journal, I'm sorry, do you want to weigh on questions? Or
No, I think if you have a question on that topic, this would be appropriate.
The Wall Street Journal published a story that the proposal was for USIF, Fortress, and related to form a joint venture and move forward with the project. Is that ESD's understanding as well?
That is what they're saying to us. We're waiting for detailed information about the joint venture.
Okay. And are there any other parties involved in the joint venture from your point of view, or is it just those three?
Not that we're aware of, but we're getting, like I said, more detailed information.
Okay, so effectively, rather than a transfer, you're kind of looking at a joint venture being formed of the current owners of the rights through foreclosure of the rail yard sites and a developer they're interested in bringing into the mix. Is that accurate? Does that sound right?
I think generally speaking, yes. And again, like going back to the permitted developer definition, you need to have either a construction entity or a developer with 10 years experience, meaningful, right? So
right.
The lender is proposing to bring in related to meet that, have that be met through this joint venture entity.
What sort of considerations are there for ESD in vetting this joint venture? Have you seen an operating agreement or?
That's part of the detailed information that we're awaiting.
Okay. Yeah. And so you need to pass, do you actually have to pass on the operating agreement in order to move forward and for them to move forward?
What do you mean pass?
Well, is that part of your review?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And that hasn't, and so you haven't received that yet. So that hasn't happened yet.
Correct.
When do you expect it?
Imminently. Next week or so.
Okay. All right. I would just want to say for the record that given that this joint venture would include private investors who acquired their ownership in those lots over the rail yard through a loan for which they took on investment risk. I really believe it's appropriate that they retain responsibility for the affordable housing deadline and the liquidated damages that are associated with it. They certainly were sophisticated enough to know that that provision was part of the agreement and was binding on the collateral that they stood to acquire if the loan wasn't repaid. So I see every reason to expect them to be responsible for those obligations.
Can I just ask a follow-up question on that in that regard? As I understand it, the way that USIF is coming into ownership is by, through foreclosure, taking on the interests of the two Greenland subsidiaries that were holding those development rights, that were holding those development rights, and therefore they're essentially stepping into the shoes of whatever obligations those entities had. Is that correct? There were two LLCs, I believe. Is that correct?
How we the entities that are currently responsible for the affordable housing liquidated damages will technically remain the same entities that will be responsible for those damages after the foreclosure.
But those entities are now going to be owned by USIF. Is that right?
Not all of the entities, is my understanding. I mean, there's like the Atlantic Yards Venture LLC, I think, not be part of the transition with the foreclosure. I mean,
what is that? What is that entity?
That was the entity that was assigned. My understanding was when Greenland came into the deal, took over all the obligations as the essential master developer of the project.
Question.
Okay. Well, we need to be very careful here, right? Because we don't want to have there be a mechanism through which USIF suddenly takes on these two other Greenland subsidiaries, but doesn't take on the obligations with respect to the housing.
We're very cognizant of that.
Okay. Yeah, this is not to be a vehicle for that kind of
For the public
extrication. Let's
and
put
for
it that
all
way.
of the people around the table, could you tell us who USIF is and what their responsibilities are?
Well, in terms of like after the foreclosure,
In general, what are their functions?
well, we don't know. We don't have the documents yet for whatever the proposed venture would be after the foreclosure. I think other people can speak to, what USAF's role has been thus
They're a
far.
lender. Yes, they were the lender for the platform.
Or syndicator. What the
They're-
source of the
Syndicator
revenue comes from?
Yes, they're a syndicator.
Of what?
They're more of a middleman for the.
Where loans from investors are participating in the 5 program. Right.
And have any of them ever been convicted of a crime or accused of a crime? And has any of the new people that are being brought in there into the deal have a record that is comparable to the record of the people who've already been now foreclosed and have a suspected background?
I mean, once we get all the information and all the documents from this venture, we are going to take a holistic look at it. I mean, we are aware of news reports on USIF, but we don't have enough information yet to make a decision.
Once you get that information, would you refer the parties there to the Attorney General or to some legal source to vet them properly to make sure we're not getting into another scheme where foreign investors are being brought with the desire to become citizens and being taken a ride economically?
I don't know how to respond to that question. I don't think there's any obligation that the Attorney General has to review this.
Or they could know whether there's criminal activity that this individual has been involved in or suspected or shady activity.
ESD has a process for all of its development agreements to do vetting on any potential.
Well, you
potential
apparently didn't do it for the one who's being foreclosed now, because they have been in trouble. They really violate your principles. Okay, so that going forward, because it wasn't you, but the agency, it's not you individually. So going forward, I want to protect you and I want to protect the state engaging in what really is shady activity.
It sounds like we'd have to move to a federal level, but I understand your concerns, and what I would like to understand is whether or not the lender has been asked or will be asked to pony up the poor performance or failure to perform penalties at all.
Well, that gets back to my comment just a few minutes ago, which is I'm as concerned about if not more concerned, piece that from the sound of it, is being left behind with that Atlantic Yards Development LLC that you mentioned. That maybe which
Nothing's being
Yeah, I was
left
saying,
behind.
I wouldn't categorize it.
I don't want to speak about the kind of organizational chart.
all right, I'll take that, like, left behind, but it sounds like certain obligations are going to remain with an entity that USIF is not taking over, and as to which there may be little recourse against, if it's, in the sort of tower of green.
I would disagree with that categorization because our understanding is that there are 3 different entities who are parties to the development agreement who are collectively responsible under the development agreement.
Right.
And that, at least one of those entities will be this new joint venture. So
Okay.
they're all, the entities are still the same. And the new venture is,
And they're all going to
stepping
have
into
the
the
same.
shoes.
They're all going to have the obligations with respect to the affordable housing delivery. And
Well, we're looking at that, but that's our understanding that there are 3 entities today that are responsible, and post foreclosure, it'll be the 3 same entities that are responsible.
So, want to make sure. It sounds like you're on top of it.
I
Go ahead,
don't think
Mayor.
I got an answer. I don't think I got an answer as to whether or not the failure to perform penalties are part of what you're asking from the new development
We-
entity.
I think as we talked about last time, we are in the permitted developer phase of it. There's going to be second phase once we are past the foreclosure about what?
Okay.
About the GPP and all of the obligations.
I understand that, but okay, you're writing the demands and performance requirements. Were the penalties for failure to perform included in what you asked for? And to Gibbs' point, will they be asked to commit to the affordable housing? Maybe a better question would be, can those failure to perform penalties be folded into a more augmented requirement for affordable housing? Since they're skimming away on and not ponying up with the work that they were supposed to do, but they didn't do it. So time passed, time is money. What's happening here?
Right, so we're not adjusting the GPP as part of this permitted developer process. We are speaking to USIF Fortress about a proposed alternative person across the table, and we've remained consistent that any changes to the GPP, including any augmentation that you mentioned, would be part of a larger public process.
Have you had any conversations with Related?
About the permitted developer process, yes.
And those conversations have been with Related, USIF, and Fortress.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify. I think at a previous meeting, Mr. Dorado explained to us that the entities that own that to whom were transferred the development rights over the rail yard also received the obligation to build X number of affordable units on those sites. Is that correct? I mean, that would, I think, align with what was done with other sites where the development pieces were sold.
I believe so, right? Those entities have, there's the 800 plus units, right? That's what you're referring to?
Speak up so you can be recorded.
Yes, I believe so. And you're referring to the 870.
Yeah, the 877 remaining units. Because I think so the foreclosure itself has not been completed at this point, or?
No, it can't be until.
I see. You have to have a permitted developer to actually complete the foreclosure. So if somehow a permitted developer emerged tomorrow morning and this could be finished, which obviously it will not, those entities, the foreclosure would be complete, the entities would be transferred to this new entity, and the obligations would be transferred as well at that point.
The rights and obligations.
Yes, the rights and obligations. Okay. All right. Just I wanted to make sure that that I understood it correctly and that everybody else now hopefully understands it too.
Okay. Any other comments on this specific issue, and then I want to let Anna proceed with her update.
If this process doesn't result in a positive evaluation on your behalf, is there a plan B or an alternative to this that ESDC is looking at? And if not, why not?
The lender would have the right to present a different permitted developer to us if this did not result in.
But couldn't you then use the powers of the state to convince that the developer that they should take the following actions?
Sorry, which developer are we talking
The
about?
one that now exists, the one that you are in negotiating, who's coming to you with an alternative for?
Oh, the lender.
Lender or Green? Is it Greenland that you're referring to?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
referring to Green.
We have legal documents that lay out their obligations that go through 2035, right? And
But there's a state need now. There's a desperate need in the state for housing.
Totally.
You know it, and I know
I
it. We do know that there are upcoming elections. We do know that the state legislature is thinking about a social housing program. Is there any conversation between ESDC and some of the state legislators? Is there any conversation between ESDC and the federal government? I know when the Urban Development Corporation was formed, they were sitting at that table. They were helping form some of these programs so they could meet the stated obligation of the agency. What I think you're forgetting is that the Empire State Development Corporation is there to create both a vibrant economy and to develop housing.
Ron,
rather than just to protect.
we definitely are.
Can I just?
I want to know what you're doing to
Wait,
achieve
Ron,
those goals.
Ron, that is a very large question, topic and question. I think.
But that's the issue.
I understand. I understand, but we're in the middle of an update on the project, and we took a question.
I just want to know if there's an
But I'd like to reserve that discussion. We can have it at a later time in the meeting. But I think we need to let Anna continue with her update, and then we have a time for public comment and more general discussion after this. But I'd like to, and it's a perfectly good question. It's just a timing issue. Anna, can you just pick up where you?
Yeah, I'll pick up next. Thank you, David. All right. We also have gotten questions, and you requested more information about the plaza outside of Barclays. So you see it on the slide up there. That is all the plaza area. You see in front of the arena is the public area, as well as the MTA stop that I'm sure you're all familiar with. So the blue portion of the map in the slide represents the public plaza. The arena is responsible in their lease to maintain and repair. They did a recent repaving, some of you may have noticed, of the plaza. Under the lease agreement, they're required to keep the plaza open 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. They opt to keep it open 24/7. As somebody who's frequented it past and earlier, it's open at those hours. There were questions around use of the plaza. Events by Barclays, such as showcase games, so queuing, et cetera, are permitted under the lease. ESD does in the arena lease. We have the right to make comments and suggestions that they, in good faith, will respond to. But under the lease, they are managing, maintaining, cleaning, repairing, and using for those events the plaza.
And so it's the entire, their lease covers the entire blue area on the left side of the page.
Like basically everything is not the building.
Everything that's not the residential building.
Who has the naming rights that are affiliated with the plaza?
The naming rights for the plaza itself?
Yes,
Not as distinguished from the arena, just to be clear.
for the plaza itself.
The arena does under the lease.
The arena does, so they can generate income.
Well, it does have a separate name, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it called Ticketmaster Plaza?
It had several, but yeah.
So we have Barclays Arena and Ticketmaster Plaza. And the revenue from that goes entirely to the lessee.
That's sports and entertainment.
Who's less, who's less?
Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment.
Give
So the lease we're talking about is it's one lease for this entire area that's outlined in blue right now, the arena and the plaza.
Yes.
And what's the term of that lease?
It goes through 2047, give or take a few months depending on the NBA season if it ran into postseason, but 2047.
and the lessor for that is ESD or
The lessor
is an ESD.
is this.
It's the Baltic.
Brooklyn Arena Local Development Corporation.
But that's a state. That's an owned entity. It's not like it's through the developer.
No.
Say the name again.
Or a state entity.
Sorry, say the name again.
Is it Brooklyn Arena?
Local
Development. Yeah, it's like Bald Sea.
Bald Sea.
Yeah. So when this this lease was the lease originated in 2012 when the arena was completed. I guess the reason I'm asking this is what provisions in the lease were there to account for the possibility of building B1, because that has up until the marvelous Site 5 development lease was signed was part of the project. So presumably the late lease for the arena and the plaza predates October 2021.
2021?
Yeah.
The interim lease.
The interim lease.
The declaration for the arena site goes into a lot of detail about what would happen when B1 is built and how that would work in terms of the arena versus that construction.
Okay, but at some point, if they build a building there, it can't be part of their lease any longer.
Well, they would still have the ability to use and maintain and improve and program the enclosed space under the construction.
So that would
be a
remain.
sublessor.
So that would, okay, so what was supposed to be the urban room would have continued under their control. Okay. Right. So effectively, I mean, the economic value to them of relocating B1 is not to lose access to that space for the intervening years where the B1 building would have been developed. There's probably some form of license agreement that's part of the lease that explains what would happen when that construction takes place. And there's presumably some economic value to them in having that not happen.
I can't speak to the economic value, but the declaration does speak of what would happen when they were ready to proceed with construction of B1.
Is there any relief in the lease expense for Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment during that time, if that happened, or do they still pay
No, nothing changes.
Okay, okay. This is good to understand. I mean, it does seem like not moving ahead with B1 does represent some type of a benefit to the lessee in this case, and we should have some kind of recourse to try to.
Are you talking about the years that they would have been under construction that they don't lose? Because
among other benefits.
Yeah,
And the advantage of having the space
value goes. Well, they were
open to
they were
open to the air.
and they get and as Ron pointed out, they are able to sell the naming rights as well to the plaza, which perhaps they could have done to the urban room as well.
They do have the rights for the urban room as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks. I think that helps to sort of clarify what the situation there is.
Okay. Anything further on this on the
So
Arena and public plaza.
there is more on Barclays. This is the extent of the plaza portion. We did want to also bring to you, and you have it in the handout as well. David will pull it up. It may take 1 second to pull up what we received from BSE. But I wanted to inform you about a proposal submitted to ESD from Greenland and Barclays for the temporary use of the vacant Modell's building. It's currently sitting vacant. I'm sure you've all seen it. And they want to use it for their youth basketball program. This is an after school and summer camp program you may be familiar with. It's in area high schools, as well as in the stadium during the summer with the camp. We are reviewing the proposal, but this is their proposed. This is the proposal that they gave to us and encouraged us to share with the board as well.
And the Modell's building is owned now by ESD after condemnation, right? Okay.
So did they have, I'm sorry, remind me, BSE is the entity that's the lessee. Does the lessee have some rights in
This would be between BSE and Greenland.
Greenland?
And it would be on a temporary basis.
Right. I'm just trying to understand their economics around it. Like, so they
Between BSE.
between BSE and Greenland.
And we would certainly, retain, it would be on a temporary basis, knowing full well and explicitly stated that, for when development is moving along at the site, it would not be inhibiting.
So this would be for next summer.
This would begin as early as the after-school programs this year. And, we're reviewing. This is a combination camp and after-school program that they do throughout the school year and then again in the summer. You may have seen they did a couple of showcases of it for the public in the past. It's that program.
And how is the program funded?
It is a BSE managed program.
So with
To their funds,
money.
Their money.
They pay for it. Yeah, there's no cost to the youth that participate.
I don't know.
I don't know that. Can get that though.
Yeah, I mean, there are development costs associated with building out basketball courts and making the site suitable for use in this way, and then presumably
And this is
their security and insurance, and various other associated costs, and those would be borne by BSE.
Mm-hmm.
It would be helpful to confirm that there is no cost to the participants.
Well, it says free clinics, paragraph 3 on the first page.
But we could doubly confirm. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Just want to note that I'm glad that something is being.
Yeah, I was.
Want to go on the record, like, love it to be free, but getting that site active.
I think it's,
Yeah.
obviously you're going to review the proposal and but as a general matter, this seems like really good news that this is not going to be vacant, unused, blight site. At least while we're waiting for the ultimate development to be done. Seems like a great use for the space.
All right, great.
3 full courts and 1 half court.
Indeed. It's already, they got the high ceiling,
That's
so. Not like a big All right, thank you, Denise.
Will let us know when there are like events where the Liberty and Nets players are there.
Liberty, you're busy right now, right? All right. So this is another item that you had requested further information of that we can discuss. So as previously mentioned, ESD and Greenland entered into an interim lease for Site 5 in October of 2021 in order to detail the tenant and landlord rights and obligations. ESD generally enters into interim leases. We do it to govern the maintenance and use of a site prior to the redevelopment portion. And as part of this interim lease, again, in 2021, a provision allowed for the tenant to work with ESD for a GPP modification. And that was outlined in what you may recall we call Exhibit K. No part of a modification process has been commenced. ESD requested at the time that the developer come to us with a robust community engagement plan that would precede any modifications for an MGPP action and an environmental review. So we remain committed to evaluating modifications only through discussions such as these, such as with the elected officials who we've been speaking with regularly, as well as in the public. And yeah, so that's high level, and we can go through a few of the items as well.
I think it'd be important to talk about what's in Exhibit K.
Sure.
But go ahead. I'll recognize Joanne.
Do you mind? I'm sorry. I realized.
You have to speak. You have to speak.
Assemblymember
You
Simon.
said that ESD required that the developer come to you with a robust engagement plan. At the time that this lease amendment, interim lease, and Exhibit K was created, and my question was, did they come to you with some sort of robust engagement plan?
They did not.
So you still signed off on it?
It would be sorry.
Let me clarify.
Yeah.
This was signed before any of the folks here.
Yeah, no,
The conversations around a robust plan were led by this group,
right,
for the last 2 years after that was signed. That was signed that said there would be a modification of the GPP, which often involves a community engagement process.
Sorry.
Well, a public process.
From experience.
Right. So in the last 2 years, we've asked for this.
Yeah. Okay, so you've asked for this, and they're allegedly willing to do it, presupposing they are the same they.
We haven't gotten a plan yet.
Yeah, can speak to their willingness.
On their plan for community engagement, but we're talking with them fairly recently about them coming to us.
I'm guessing they don't. Okay.
The traditional way is for a developer to develop a plan and then to do the environmental impact analysis of what that plan would entail, right? It's at the end of the pipe. I'm wondering if you can't reverse that and do an environmental assessment of what the carrying capacity of that site is, what various different development options would really mean for that particular site and for the cumulative impact of the various different developments on the surrounding community, so that we create a framework by which the development can be properly assessed before it's fixed in everybody's mind.
Good idea.
Great idea.
The carrying capacity basically means, I've been asked to define it, is what is the environmental impact? How much water will be going into the waste system? How much electricity will be demanded from this? What will be the traffic patterns in the street? What will be the impact on the schools and the social networks that exist in this community? Can we really develop this site to the extent that a 40, a 50, a 60-story building would be? How do we make sure that what comes out of this is an appropriate development project?
Tell me more about your thinking on the sequencing of that, because if there's a proposal and we evaluate it and we evaluate alternatives as part of the environmental, like what's different about doing that in reaction to a proposal?
What you're doing is you're developing a program for it that is optimal, rather than looking at a fixed project that comes to you that then you either have to approve or disapprove, and usually approve with mitigation measures. This really tells you that this area can really, without much public investment, carry a population of X number of people, that the school system here would not have to be expanded beyond a certain number of seats. It tells you what we really can afford to do on this site without really stretching the environmental and sustainability of the area. It creates a program.
I call that
Ron, can I-
real advanced planning.
But to do that kind of assessment, don't you need to have some sort of pro forma or assumed, broad outlines of a proposed development in order to say, okay, and then that you have that assume you work with those assumptions and then say, well, that development has to be.
The engineers would look at all the existing services and they would figure out what the capacity is. That usually happens in an EIS.
I like it.
It happens, but it always happens at the very end. And people for a long period of time have been basically saying, instead of doing it at the end of the pipe, you do it at the beginning of the pipeline. It saves everybody a lot of money and a lot of pain. And it, from my perspective, it advances the project in a quicker way.
It's like providing a compass.
And I would suggest that be done. And that, in many ways, Jamie Stein suggested that a number of years ago, that a consultant be brought in to see what is the proper use of this site.
Any other comments on that?
It wasn't a comment on this. I mean, I would be a supporter of that type of approach. I think one of my concerns about the interim lease at Exhibit K is that I think it may constrain ESD's ability to do an objective environmental review because you've already kind of agreed on the outcome. So, for instance, you mentioned alternatives, which are a part of an environmental review, but you've already agreed to some very specific outcomes. So you can study those alternatives. But if I was lessee, I would, and you said, no, we instead of this, we arrived at a different alternative that's preferable, like not having a loading dock on Pacific Street. As the lessee, I would probably say, well, that's not okay. You signed an agreement with me that says I can have the loading dock on Pacific Street. And
let's not state you're essentially stating legal conclusions that may not.
Well, what other purpose is there for the Exhibit K? I mean, it's always known that the developer, the master developer, can apply for a modification to the project plan and go through the established public process for doing that. So what was the purpose of executing the Exhibit K along with the interim lease, if not to enumerate the entitlements that were going to add value to the property? And once they've added the value to the property, how can it be clawed back?
What you're stating is what the lessee's position would be. I think at the last meeting, the ESD staff, as I recall, took the position that they were not necessarily locked into those obligations. So I don't want us as a subsidiary to then somehow provide fodder for countering that position. So that's all. I want to make sure it's noted for the record that these are comments. You're stating what are probably the lessee's views on the effective Exhibit K, but I don't want that to be construed in any way as from some future person reading the minutes of this meeting as somehow establishing that as a legal.
Fair enough. And I am speaking from the perspective of the lessee,
okay.
But I think the lessee's perspective has some relevance here.
All right. Going into.
Yeah, well, why don't we, are you going to go into Exhibit A? Okay.
So again, in 2021, Greenland put forward the following modifications. These are all subject to a public MGPP process with all the necessary reviews and assent, including environmental. I'll let you read through them.
Are we going to have a copy of these?
These will be online. Yeah, they'll be on the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can send them to the directors after the meeting once we go to post it online.
Thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I want to add too that I think that the Exhibit K also enumerates maximum height as well as bulk. And I think the maximum height is 910 feet, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's similar to what I was.
Yeah. Which wouldn't make it taller than Brooklyn Tower, but it would be the second tallest building in Brooklyn.
Make it 14 feet, 10 feet less than the Chrysler building.
But who's counting?
Who's counting?
Enclosure.
I don't have the Exhibit K in front of me, but it talks about the increased residential gross
Okay.
square.
Keep your voice up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have
For
the
the
Exhibit K, but
for the person in the sky who's listening.
yeah. What's the amount of residential gross square feet that is permitted in the Exhibit K? I don't have it committed to memory.
We will get that right now.
It's up to about 1.2 million.
I can't hear you, sir.
Up to 1.2 million approximately.
Additional 1.2 million?
Sir,
Yeah.
if you want, we'll have a time for public comment and questions.
That would be the total.
Okay. So let's say, I mean, that's about 2,000 units. Okay. And then is the hotel, and the hotel, I want to say it's like a 500 room hotel that's permitted, something like that?
That we'll have to confirm.
Okay.
That we'll have to confirm.
All right. But is it one of
Not
the,
permitted, though.
what?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. None of this is
Right?
permitted.
None of this is permitted.
Yes.
Good point.
Right. But are those things cumulative, or is it one or the other? Or is it the hotel and the 2,000 units?
Well, none of these have been approved, so we don't.
Can't hear you.
Okay, but it's, I mean,
Yeah, please.
and I guess we don't know what the intention of the people who drafted this exhibit was relative. We can only speculate because fortunately for them, those people are not here anymore.
Yeah, we'd have to get back to you on the specifics.
Okay.
While you're looking into it, I had a question, and I don't know whether this is covered at all by Exhibit K or some other portion of the lease. Whether this is covered by Exhibit K or some other portion of the lease, but is there anything with regard to whether the affordable units that would be part of such a project would be all rentals or possibly sold? As you know.
I don't believe it details that.
Yeah, there's
Nothing on that.
Yeah.
So there's still openness.
There was no mention of affordable housing in Exhibit K.
Okay, and
I mean, it's unlikely that they would build such a building and not apply for some type of tax abatement.
Tax abatement, right.
But
right.
a building like this should deliver a lot more than just the as of right tax abatements, affordable housing.
I'm not sure that's the case.
Well, we have different views on that.
That there is affordable contemplated.
They don't have to put affordable in it. It could be built as condo, and
I know.
This goes back to anything goes through a public process.
Yes.
And I think we could all agree that a building with no affordable housing will not get through a public process.
Hello.
Yes.
Are you kidding?
On a public building site. How about that?
well, let's say that the last one that was built in Brooklyn of this size, it was condominium, hasn't done very well.
All right.
Okay, that included the Site K portion. To public comment. I defer to the chair.
Okay, well, first, I guess I'd first like to give directors an opportunity, and then if there are members of the public and if you wish to comment or ask questions.
So we heard about the proposal for putting the Brooklyn basketball camp in Modell's, but beyond that, has Greenland approached you with any other plans for Site 5, either disposing of it or building on it or anything else?
We've been
Before you answer, I just note that we had a motion to request such a plan from them back in June.
So that was obviously relayed to Greenland. We have also, advocated and pushed for them to bring on a partner, right? So we have not received a plan from them to date. They have been working on getting a partner. We will likely be speaking with them relatively soon about partner and ideas, but we don't have anything concrete in front of us.
When you say that, is that because they've told you that they are preparing to present someone as a partner?
For Site 5?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So why don't we just, we'd like an update, at our next meeting. You can update us on that. Keep it, do whatever you can in the meantime to
Keep on pushing.
keep pushing for it. I think the board's already on record as making that a priority, and that we don't want to see falling to the side while the focus is on the platform sites. So, Ron.
When we talk about affordable housing, would it be possible for us to, or for you, to develop a range of bedroom sizes so you know what population you're benefiting in terms of the ability?
Meaning when we develop the platform sites or when it
Both, because there is a growing need for 2 and 3 bedroom housing in New York City, because that's the population that is now leaving. They cannot afford to live in the city. And to what extent can we meet the needs of the public when we're talking about just meeting the needs of the developer to meet his goal or her goal?
as we move, as Joel said, there'll be more conversations around Site 5. And as we noted, there'll be more conversations post foreclosure with regard to the platform sites, but we definitely can talk about how to best.
Any other comments or questions? Directors? Any members of the public wish to make a comment? Sir, could you identify yourself and then?
My name is Robert Puka. My address right now? Okay. Are you going to limit my time here?
Well, you technically have 2 minutes, but I'll be generous.
Okay, so my first question is, at the last meeting, you guys were, this board was asked for, I'm not sure, maybe you were asked for a legal reason why you guys went into executive session. And that was requested at the last meeting. I came in late. Was there an answer to this presented at this meeting, why you guys went into executive session, and what was the legal basis for that?
I think there was a legal basis, was part of the motion.
Mr. Chairman, this is a public comment section. It's not a question and answer session. So we're not under any obligation to answer every question that's put to us. I think in terms of.
It's only one question.
I understand.
And I'm not sure you're correct about being a public comment versus question and answer. I'm not sure you're correct about that.
Okay. I did open to questions, and I think if you look back at the minutes, there was from the meeting, there was a basis in the open meetings law stated as the basis for the motion.
The basis was to discuss a real estate transaction. This is one of the enumerated exceptions for being able to go into executive session. To discuss a real estate transaction for which a public discussion would affect the value of that transaction. And that was the basis.
I think we also cited.
And there was another.
Cited the litigation.
Litigation as well. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not necessarily. I agree with you, but that's fine. Okay. My second question is Site K. Okay. I'm not Site K, but Exhibit K.
Exhibit K.
Exhibit K, which was originally, so if I understand it correctly, Greenland went to ESDC in October of 2021 and asked for these modifications. They approached ESDC. ESDC didn't approach them. Is that the correct?
I'm not in a position to speak to that.
I don't. Because I'm just wondering if any developer can just approach ESDC and say, we have a proposal for Site 5. We want to make some modifications to GPP, or is that only limited to Greenland?
We have basically a contract with, separate from this interim lease for the entire Atlantic Yards project with Greenland. So we can't just have any developer come and throw an idea at us.
Okay. And I heard the word, when I first came in here late, I heard the word permitted developer. A permitted developer excludes felons, am I correct?
We went through this
Yeah.
as part of the package that we get. We review everything holistically, and that certainly will be part of that.
Because if I'm correct, Nick Mastrioni, which is I don't know if he's the lender or the middleman, I don't know what you want to call him, but he's controlling the sites for foreclosure. Isn't he a convicted felon? Am I correct about that?
I don't know what,
Norman,
Mr. Chairman, I would advise that the members of the public are free to make comments, but this is not a question and answer.
that kind of question's out of order. It's not, you can make a statement.
Well, I'm going to make, I'd like to make a statement. I'm concerned that you're only talking about a permitted developer. I don't think a felon like Nick Mastriani, who's been convicted of a felony, should be considered a permitted developer.
As I understand it, he's an officer of USIF, which is not going to be the developer. They are bringing in a developer, and that is the entity that's being reviewed for approval as a potential approval as a.
And you're talking about Relator right now as a permitted developer. Relator right now is being sued by a bunch of EB5 investors who have never gotten paid back their original $500,000 investment. So I don't know how you can say Related is a permitted developer when they're in the process of a lawsuit right now. And I know they're countersuing, things like that, but so I'd like to make that comment also. I don't know if I'm incorrect about that, but I'd like to make that comment also. And I also like to make a comment that Mr. Schiffman made an excellent point. Jill Stein was a member of this committee years and years ago. Jamie Stein. I apologize.
Please.
I apologize. And I would like to just, reinforce the notion that an outside consultant should be hired by this board to do what Mr. Schiffman and the rest of the board recommend. I don't know if there was a motion on the table for that. I'd recommend the board put a motion on the table to maybe hire a consultant to do that pre-planning for Site 5. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else wish to make a comment? Any other members of the public? Okay. Hearing none, I guess, and we didn't have anyone sign up, I assume, make a comment or anything. Okay. All right. We just talked about timing for when we would next.
We've been regularly coming to you with developments, so I think when the next major development would be in the near term.
Okay, well, how about this? I mean, can we try to work on a basically sort of a bi-monthly basis?
I think you have something, we did send a date to you for the November.
For November,
So, yeah, you
okay.
have,
All right,
don't recall it off the top of my head, but you've already been given a date.
okay, so apparently we have a proposed date for November. People should look back at that. Maybe you can resend that.
Yeah.
And people should check their calendars and hold the date if they can, or indicate if they have a conflict.
I think when I sent it around, I said, please hold on.
She doesn't recall it off. I don't recall it off.
The 14th?
I think it's the 14th.
November 14th, yeah.
November
When I sent it around,
14th.
I
So
asked
check your calendars and let us know on the email chain, whatever, whether that.
We should have clarity on where the country's going.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yes.
No, come on. May I make one more comment, not about this, about the quality of life meetings? It's my comment.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd like to know-
I actually am curious about what the status is with.
Yes,
quality of life.
yes, actually, so we do plan on having a quality of life meeting in the near term future. We wanted to first update the board on the plaza and other things because we said we'd come back to you, but we are gonna.
What's an approximate time frame for getting that on the?
Between now and the next board meetings.
Now in the next board meeting, certainly, yeah, I'd say weeks, not months.
Sometime this fall, there will be a quality of life before
Am I correct?
November 14th.
Am I correct that we're supposed to have a quality of life meeting every couple of months? Or isn't that?
I don't recall whether there
Anybody know
was
what
a
the,
correct schedule for that.
Is there a legal requirement or something, or it's just that was just a suggestion?
Was that covered in the settlement agreement?
I did,
No.
because there hasn't been a quality life meeting in 18 months.
That's my understanding, and we should get those back on.
Again, I don't know if the board wants to make a motion to get those meetings.
We don't need a motion. Staff has already indicated that they're in the process.
I appreciate taking the time to listen. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks. So, unless there are any further comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Thank you.
Carries.
Are there more copies of these handout?
You know, this these are our notes.
Oh, those are your notes.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Oh, okay.
I just want to get it right.
I understand.
There's a copy at the front of the room.
In front of the room?
I don't remember.
You know, that